In addressing the topic of change last week, I spoke about millennials on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. In all that I read about reaching out to younger generations, a theme that runs through everything I read is the importance of transmitting meaning, of transmitting a meaning of Judaism to our young people. Anything less than something meaningful has no value. The days of we do it because it is tradition are gone, are over. Today, if it is about anything, it is about meaning. And so I thought about, how do I transmit the meaning of Judaism to the millennial generation, or Generation X, Generation Y? And I thought that the first thing I have to do is I have to look within myself and see how Judaism is a source of meaning for me. And I invite all of us to do the same thing. You know, let yourself think about, what meaning does Judaism have for me? What meaning does tonight have for me? Am I here purely by means of a ritual? Or do I anticipate and can I insert real meaning into what's happening here tonight and tomorrow and all the days ahead throughout the course of the year? What is the meaning that Judaism has for me? I ask myself that question. And of course, Judaism has the deepest meaning for me. But I gave myself the assignment of putting it, the thoughts and the feelings, into words. And along with meaning, another word that keeps coming up again and again is the word authenticity. Young people are keenly aware what is authentic and what is fake, what is real and what is not. What we transmit, we really have to feel and believe. What we transmit has to be authentic, it has to be genuine, it has to be real. And if I am transmitting Judaism's meaning, I have to be authentic and genuine and real, because nothing less will do. So I share with you tonight a bit of Judaism's meaning for me. It would be impossible to share it all, but I want to at least scratch the surface. Judaism's meaning for me begins with my looking to Judaism to help me be a better person. I always felt from my high school years on that somehow with Judaism, I could be and I would be a better person than I would be just left on my own to God knows in what direction. I've always found great value in Judaism's ethics and ideals. Judaism has always been for me a source of compassion and kindness, and seeing others as created in the image of God. This is at the core of these holy days, and especially today. As hard as today is, and will get harder and harder, today is a gift to inspire us to do better and to be better. That has great meaning for me personally. There is infinite meaning in this gift. You know the teaching of the great sage Hillel? It's quoted by Jews and non-Jews alike today. Hillel starts with the words, Im ein ani li mili. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? We begin with an examination of ourselves, with me. A sincere encounter with Judaism supports us in leading a life of ethics and goodness, even a holy life. But then Hillel goes on to say, Uchsha'ani la'atzmi ma'ani. If I'm only for myself, what am I? From Judaism, I feel an obligation to care about the world beyond myself, to care about our community, to care about our country, our great country, and to care about the world. As the sea level rises, the polar caps melt, and natural life is challenged in too many parts of the planet, with average temperatures rising, and with the weather becoming more and more extreme, I feel the verse from the Psalms recited each Sunday morning, the first day after the Sabbath. La'adonai ha'aretz u'melo'ah. The earth is the Lord's, not ours. Doesn't belong to us. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. We are but temporary residents. And we have an obligation to preserve this gift given to us for future generations. Anything we can do to stem the tide of global heating, it is a mitzvah. Judaism's meaning for me is I see the world through Jewish eyes, and I understand the world through a Jewish mind, and I feel the world, I hope, with a Jewish heart. I am sensitive to the plight of immigrants today because our ancestors were immigrants for hundreds and thousands of years. There is no people alive in the world today that were immigrants as much as our people. Whatever country we were living there temporarily. And then we were thrown out. And we went and became immigrants in a new country. And they made use of us, and when they no longer had use of us, they either expelled us or we became their scapegoats. Again and again, we were immigrants. And not only our ancestors, my grandparents and your grandparents or great-grandparents were immigrants to this country. I heard the story more than once that it was only a few years after my grandfather came to this country from Russia alone, he went back to Europe as an American GI and fought in the First World War. That is what a new immigrant can give to our country. And I saw what happened when our country closed its doors to us in 1940. Potential Jewish immigrants on the St. Louis ship could look out from the boat and see the shores of Miami. But they were turned away. They were turned away. No more immigration. No more Jews. And they went back to almost sure death in the camps in Europe. We were immigrants in the land of Egypt, and no less than 36 times the Torah commands us, "You shall love the stranger in your midst. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt," and that has to ring true to us today. There is meaning in being committed to a cause beyond yourself, a purpose that is greater than yourself. Once again, if I am only for myself, if I think I am the center of the universe and all that matters, ma'ani, then what am I? And while we care about the whole world, it is only fair that we care especially about the members of our family and those part of our Jewish family in any part of the world. I recall a cold winter evening when I was in high school, standing outside the steps of the Academy of Music, handing out literature. This was 1969, handing out literature about Soviet Jewry, as the well-dressed crowd came into the Academy to see a performance of the Bolshoi Ballet. I had read Elie Wiesel's Night about his suffering in Auschwitz and Treblinka, and in his later book, The Jews of Silence, about the Jews of the Soviet Union who could meet the same fate as European Jewry, the fate of extinction, as they lived as hidden Jews and as silent Jews. And then I visited the Soviet Union in 1985 and 1991. I visited with refuseniks and I taught Hebrew. my purpose was to help save Soviet Jewry. And that purpose provided me with great meaning. And then the meaning on an existential level. Tomorrow morning we will say those words that awaken us and disturb us. Who shall live and who shall die? For some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but I have always acutely felt and have acutely been aware and even troubled by the finitude of our lives. Finite in length and in its breadth. We are but a speck in the planet. We are but a dot in the universe. And when I hear that, I don't find myself comforted by it. I'd like to be something more than a speck in the universe and a dot in the planet. And I have always found great meaning and felt transported when having an aliyah to the Torah. And in the blessing after the Torah, I say, V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Oh God, you have planted within me everlasting life through my relationship with your Torah. And everlasting life is a lot longer than finite infinitude. Alone, I am but finite, and alone I am but a speck on the planet. But holding the Torah and embracing the Torah, I feel part of something larger, something great and something magnificent, and something that is forever. And so it's the Torah that provides me with great meaning. And writing our Ohev Shalom Torah, it's now 17 years ago, was one of the most magnificent and meaningful experiences I think we have ever had. Of course, one of the great verses of the Torah is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Listen, we have a choice in how we can understand our place in the world. We can understand our lives as living in a world which exists purely by chance, which makes our lives a game of chance. Or we can posit a world that really matters, lives that matter, love that matters, because there is a power in the world greater than ourselves that pervades the universe, and we call that power God. A few years ago, I was with a really lovely Lubavitch rabbi. We were standing next to each other and both conducting a service. And he spoke about how he saw God is involved in every minute detail in his life. And I couldn't help but question him after we were done the service. And I said, really? You think God is interested in every little detail in your life? You think God is interested on when you turn the ignition on, whether the car turns over or not? Just so happened that day, my car wouldn't turn over. So I was interested in that. You think God is interested in that? He said, absolutely. God decides whether my car turns over. God bless you, I thought. Wish he cared that much about me that morning. I don't go that far. I don't go that far. But feeling a relationship with God nevertheless gives so much meaning to what otherwise seems like an emptiness. Again, a connection to that greater power magnifies me beyond being but a small speck in the universe. What is meaningful to me? Being here. Being here is so very meaningful to me. By junior high school, I started going to services every week on Friday night. I was one of the few junior high school kids that was there every Friday night, as you can imagine. And then I soon started going every Shabbat morning. And then in my early 20s, when I was in the hospital for a few weeks, some 3 weeks, what I wanted more than anything else was to get back to my seat in the synagogue, because that had by then become a place of deep meaning for me, and it has remained so. There was a certain sense of comfort there. There was a sense of belonging there. There was a sense of goodness there. I wanted to return, and I am grateful that all these years later, I am here. So a question. Does something you love, by definition, provide meaning? Can you love something that's meaningless? No. If you love something, it's got to have a lot of meaning to you. I love Judaism as a civilization, as Mordecai Kaplan presented it. And what Kaplan meant, civilizations have things like language, geography, music, literature, dance, art, humor, history, religion. It so happens that our civilization, we Jews, have a special genius for religion. But I love all aspects of our Jewish civilization, and each one infuses my life with great meaning. Our home is filled with Jewish and Israeli art. Hebrew is such a great love. Such a great love. Rarely a day goes by that I don't read something in Hebrew, either a rabbinic text or the Israeli press online. For Janie and myself, at the heart of the meaning and joy of being in Israel was always being immersed in the world of Hebrew. With Hebrew, I feel connected to King David and the prophets of Israel. And in seeing a little 3-year-old speaking Hebrew as naturally as he breathes, there is little that is more beautiful. This year is the 40th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, 1973. You remember where you were when you heard that a war had broken out, that Israel was attacked by surprise? I was conducting my college service at Temple Shalom, which I had for some years. Somebody walked in and said, the news is, we couldn't believe it, on Yom Kippur. And a few years before that, I remember the first night of the 67 war, 67. And just a few months before that, I vividly recall learning in Hebrew high school, I was in my first year of Hebrew high school, when we learned about Israel's great agronomists who took their technology to the most arid parts of Africa to teach how to make their deserts bloom, or at least yield some fruit and some growth in areas that had suffered from a terrible famine. Bangladesh in those days, other parts of Africa. And I recall feeling so proud to be part of this people, and that Israel was the country of my people. And that still has great meaning for me. I grew up with Israel as David, surrounded by Goliaths. But millennials today have a far different view of Israel. That's the reality. Millennials today have a far different view of Israel than I did when I was their age, and that I have today. And all of the studies done by age cohorts shows that if you start with 55 to 65 and then you go younger and younger, as you get younger and younger, the attachment to and support for Israel, unfortunately, decreases. Doesn't increase, decreases. Israel's purity, which I saw as a kid, purity, I saw purity. Israel's purity has been clouded over by a much more complicated story since 1967. I have friends and rabbinic colleagues. Friends and rabbinic colleagues who are much more critical of Israel than I can be. Though I feel critical of Israel at times as well. My criticism of Israel is tempered because I see Israel trying to survive in a most difficult part of the world. Maybe today, Israel is trying to survive in the most difficult part of the world that exposes itself more and more in each country surrounding Israel, exposes itself more and more as one of the most brutal places on this planet. Is Israel deserving of our criticism at times? Yes. But I think, is Israel deserving of our understanding, given the context in which this great democracy lives? I also think, yes. And we've learned what the best response is to the lessening of emotional attachment to Israel. And that is, you got to go there. You got to go there and be there. You got to go there and be there and see and feel Israel for yourself. Howard, I just happen to be looking at you right now. Last year you came back from your trip to Israel. Words could not express what you saw and what you experienced and the love that you experienced there in Israel. And look, Howard, you're still a kid at heart, you know? So it goes for you, but it goes for our young people. Send our teenagers, our high school kids on a high school trip. More and more kids are doing a gap year between high school and college. Samara did it. She did a great program called Kivunim after high school before she started college. And more of our kids are going on Israel Birthright, thankfully. Israel Birthright. You know, when those kids go on Israel Birthright, they also meet with Palestinians. They do. And they learn that the situation is not so simple. It's not so black and white. It is very complex. And in understanding the complexity, they come back with that much of a stronger understanding and attachment to Israel. And so we have to get more and more of our young people there. But I felt the same pride as I did in Hebrew high school when Israel was the first country with a mobile hospital on the ground in Haiti after the earthquake. And as we talked about last week with the deputy consul, taking in wounded Syrians into Israel for life-saving medical treatment. And I really believe that that is the truest expression of Israel's soul. And if only Israel were to be accepted by her neighbors in that part of the world, Israel's light would shine with no limits. So I said at the beginning, I can only but scratch the surface tonight. All of this does not exhaust the meaning Judaism has for me. It but begins to tell the story. I have not begun to address the meaning of study for me, of prayer, of ritual, and more and more. But at the beginning, I asked you, think about, what meaning does Judaism have for you? If your teenager, 20-something child were to say to you, but why Judaism? It's a big world out there. You know, it is a big world out there. I got an email from one of our kids who lives in Maryland but was here for Rosh Hashanah. She's with her husband's family for Yom Kippur. She sent me this very, really intriguing email. She said, Rabbi, she said, amongst a few other questions she had, she said, we have survived all kinds of persecution, but can we survive the freedom we have in America? We have all kinds of freedom here to be whoever and whatever we want. And so our kids are asking, okay, tell me, why Judaism? What meaning does it have? So, you know, they're your kids. I feel like they're my kids too. So I want to have what to say to my confirmation class and kids older in their 20s and 30s. And I hope that perhaps something or some things I've shared tonight might resonate with you. I'd like to really ask you if there's something on your mind where you're saying, you know what, or you'll maybe feel it in the days to come, you know, something about Judaism that is really meaningful for you. I would love to know it. So if you could put pen to paper after Yantif, or send it through cyberspace. If you could just share that with me, I'd love to read it. And I hope the journey of meaning continues for you and for me. I hope there are new ways, not yet discovered, that we will find even new meaning in Judaism's timeless wisdom. And so, to make full circle, in order for us to reach our young people, which is ultimately our goal, it's my goal, we have to be authentic. We have to be genuine. We have to be real and point to what has meaning. Authentic, genuine, real, and filled with meaning. I embrace this as my vision and my hope for this year and years to come. And I hope this will be our synagogue's vision for this year and for years to come. Authentic, genuine, real, and filled with meaning. So I say to you tonight, well again tomorrow, Gemar Chatima Tova. O God, may we each now be sealed, B'Sefer HaChaim, in the Book of Life. Amen.